Unmasking the unconscious. The origins of female motivation. Freud stood like a watchman at the gates of the psyche, carefully observing the ceaseless procession of human behaviors and desires. His lantern of insight pierced the darkness of the Victorian world, revealing that beneath civilized society's genteel manners and composed facades, there lay profound forces, the powerful, invisible currents of unconscious desire. Freud saw clearly that humans were not rational creatures guided primarily by logic or morality, but rather puppets dancing on strings woven from submerged, unacknowledged impulses. Among these deeply buried yearnings, none intrigued him as profoundly as those concealed within the feminine psyche, a psyche wrapped tightly within layers of societal expectations and elaborate self-restraint. Female desire, Freud argued, was neither simple nor straightforward, but rather a complex tapestry woven through generations of repression, conditioning, and subtle resistance. Women, trained from infancy to conceal their deeper ambitions beneath an agreeable exterior of politeness, passivity, and nurturing, were forced to encode their wishes into a private, secret language of gestures and implications. Freud noticed how these drives, particularly the intense cravings for agency, security, and dominance, were pushed underground by a culture intent on idealizing female submissiveness. The feminine unconscious thus became a vault for hidden desires, a treasury of unspoken truths locked away from both men's scrutiny and women's own conscious awareness. At the heart of Freud's controversial exploration of female psychology was the notion of penis envy. Far from a crude anatomical fascination, this provocative term represented Freud's belief that women's longing was never truly about male anatomy, but rather what that anatomy symbolized: power, autonomy, and unchallenged authority within a patriarchal world. Freud perceived clearly that, from early childhood, girls recognized that the world granted males freedom, privilege, and command simply by virtue of their gender. What appeared superficially as envy for physical anatomy was actually a profound hunger for social status, for the capability to command respect and influence, rights casually bestowed upon men but systematically denied to women. Thus, penis envy became Freud's potent metaphor, encapsulating women's covert yearning to hold and wield power openly, instead of through whispered strategies and delicate manipulations. From passivity to strategy, female behavior as adaptive control. In Freud's view, what society celebrated as feminine passivity was actually a masterstroke of adaptation, a strategic form of control meticulously refined over centuries. Freud perceived that women's outward displays of gentleness, delicacy, and submission were rarely genuine expressions of helplessness. Instead, they functioned as a strategic facade, a subtle art of influence and persuasion crafted carefully from behind the scenes. To Freud, femininity was not submission, but rather a tactical choice, a weaponized form of power adapted precisely because direct forms of influence were denied by social conventions. Behind every soft smile or demure glance lay a powerful, hidden calculation. Women navigated through subtle emotional channels, wielding leverage through compassion, guilt, moral superiority, or self-sacrifice. Freud described this feminine mastery as akin to a gentle conductor directing a symphony from the shadows. Quietly and discreetly, women became adept at orchestrating relationships, influencing family dynamics, and steering the emotional tides of their households, all while maintaining plausible deniability. Their power was executed indirectly, their dominance camouflaged by gentle persuasion and emotional subtlety. They did not thunder from podiums, yet their whispers moved mountains. This intricate role as a silent director allowed women to affect society profoundly without ever openly claiming command. Thus, Freud insisted, passivity was far from weakness. It was an evolved strategy, a highly sophisticated mechanism allowing women to shape their worlds, hidden in plain sight. The child's first seductress, mother as prototype of emotional power, The genesis of women's indirect mastery, according to Freud, began at the mother's knee, the cradle of emotional and psychological conditioning. Within the drama of Freud's Oedipus complex, the mother emerged not merely as a caretaker, but as the child's first seductress, a powerful figure possessing absolute dominion over the child's initial emotional landscape. She held the keys to comfort, affection, and validation. She controlled warmth and withheld approval with deft subtlety. Both sons and daughters grew intimately aware of her emotional authority. For daughters, this early maternal influence became particularly instructive, laying the blueprint for future methods of relational power. Girls observed firsthand their mother's quiet influence over fathers and siblings, how she could control entire family dynamics with mere shifts in mood, voice, or expression. From this vantage, young girls learned an invaluable lesson. Overt authority was not required to command influence. Psychological attachment, emotional intimacy, and relational subtlety were formidable tools in their own right. Thus, women internalized this profound lesson, carrying it into adulthood as a legacy of refined emotional control. Freud believed women mastered this relational alchemy, harnessing emotional bonds to subtly and effectively steer others without ever openly dictating terms. The repressed queen, culture's role in masking female power. Yet Freud recognized vividly that such mastery came at a profound psychological cost. The Victorian age, with its rigidly patriarchal structure, severely constricted women's public roles, relegating femininity to a realm of graceful silence and domestic invisibility. Women's overt expressions of ambition or authority were punished, their desires stigmatized, their voices muffled beneath heavy layers of societal decorum. Freud saw that these relentless external pressures intensified rather than extinguished the innate drive for influence. Forced underground, feminine desire for power festered beneath polished surfaces, intensifying inner tensions and spawning intricate emotional complexes. In the alchemy of lust, you'll be taken deep into the ancient and forgotten discipline of sexual transmutation, a principle once reserved for monks, warriors, kings, and creators. Freud famously theorized that many female neuroses, the hysterias, anxieties, obsessions, and depressions he encountered daily in his clinic, stemmed precisely from this collision between innate ambition and societal denial. The repression of women's deeper impulses did not dissolve those drives. It amplified and distorted them, channeling natural desires into self-destructive symptoms and hidden obsessions. Beneath the docile exterior of the Victorian lady lay a repressed queen, frustrated and yearning for control, trapped inside a gilded cage of societal expectations. Thus, Freud believed that the rigid cultural denial of women's right to authority produced a paradoxical amplification of feminine power, transforming quiet, internal frustration into an unconscious and potent force. Female neurosis was the symptom of a psyche at war with itself, the echo of a hidden sovereign longing desperately for recognition and liberation. In Freud's eyes, women's struggles were never merely superficial. They were profound existential battles for autonomy, waged in the silent depths of the unconscious, masked by polite smiles and graceful gestures. It was Freud's unsettling gift to the world to reveal these hidden truths. That the origins of female motivation lay not in the mild and gentle domesticity society applauded, but in the deep, primal, and undeniably powerful human desire to control one's own destiny. Seduction as a power. Play Freud's journey through the intricate corridors of the human psyche took him deep into the mysteries of romantic love, revealing an unsettling truth beneath the tender surfaces of affection. To him, love was never simply about connection or emotional intimacy. Instead, it emerged as a sophisticated battlefield where control was cleverly disguised as devotion, where vulnerability itself became a strategic tool. In the warm glow of a lover's embrace, Freud saw not innocence, but a delicate dance of power, where affection, tenderness, and charm were not mere expressions of care, but carefully calibrated weapons of psychological conquest. in the flickering candlelight of a first date or the whispered promises of the marital bed, Freud identified an unspoken yet fierce negotiation unfolding. The woman who appeared delicate, alluring, and emotionally open was often, beneath that polished exterior, a strategist. Every glance, every lingering touch, every carefully measured silence was an invitation cloaked in subtle command. Freud argued that women understood instinctively that openly expressing their demands would repel rather than attract. Thus, seduction became their most potent tool. The slow, enticing process by which a man was gradually drawn into emotional dependency without ever recognizing the subtle chains forming around him. Each shared secret, every vulnerability revealed in soft whispers, was designed to establish emotional leverage. Freud saw clearly that seduction was not about sexual gratification alone. It was about creating an enduring structure of emotional dependency that ensured influence long after passion's initial flame had cooled. Love, in Freud's unsettling portrayal, was the perfect disguise, the ideal mask behind which women skillfully maneuvered to shape and control their relationships. Emotional dependency as a weapon. Yet seduction, Freud knew, was merely the opening move. After the initial enchantment had solidified into a committed relationship, a subtler, deeper form of control emerged, one he described as emotional dependency. Freud observed that women, consciously or unconsciously, often recreated patterns of childhood attachment within their romantic relationships. They learned early that love, when managed skillfully, held immense power. Affection could reward, withdrawal could punish, and emotional intimacy could tether another person with invisible, yet unbreakable bonds. Within this framework, women deftly navigated the currents of their partner's emotional worlds, casting themselves as delicate, vulnerable beings who required constant care and vigilance. The man, believing himself a protector and savior, eagerly took up the role, unaware that in doing so, he ceded his emotional autonomy. Freud saw emotional dependency as a subtle, yet profound, means of psychological control, effectively ensuring the man's constant attention, compliance, and commitment. By positioning themselves as emotionally fragile, women paradoxically gained the upper hand, compelling men to continuously cater to their emotional needs and expectations. This dependency was not born from weakness, Freud insisted, but rather from strategic mastery. The woman who claimed helplessness or emotional need was not surrendering power. She was, in truth, asserting her dominance through carefully managed vulnerability. Each tear shed or withheld, each affectionate gesture granted or denied, reinforced the hidden chains of emotional influence. Thus, what appeared as sincere devotion or genuine helplessness often concealed a sophisticated, tactical manipulation designed to maintain long-term emotional power. The myth of the submissive woman. Freud believed society had willingly embraced a comforting illusion, the myth of the submissive woman. Culturally portrayed as compliant, passive, and yielding, women were consistently praised for their supposed obedience, their gentle nature, their innate capacity to nurture and serve. Yet Freud fiercely challenged this simplistic portrayal, arguing that submission itself was merely another layer of disguise. Beneath the veneer of compliance lay a carefully orchestrated performance, strategically designed to uphold power dynamics precisely by appearing powerless. In this portrayal, Freud saw passive-aggressive tactics deployed with precision. Silence, withdrawal, and moral superiority were used effectively as tools to shape decisions, influence behaviors, and even alter the emotional landscapes of entire families. A woman's ostensible surrender was often a calculated retreat, allowing her to regroup and manipulate outcomes from safer emotional terrain. Freud vividly described the home as the woman's true dominion, a quiet empire where she governed through the subtle yet undeniable force of emotional leverage and relational control. He characterized women as expert emotional tacticians, capable of influencing without appearing to demand, guiding without appearing to lead, and ruling without openly challenging authority. Modern echoes, control repackaged in feminine language. Freud's insights resonate powerfully even in the modern world, despite changing social contexts and gender norms. The 21st century has repackaged and marketed feminine strategies of control under new, softer terminologies: emotional intelligence, soft power, and relationship management. Yet beneath these fresh labels lies the same ancient art Freud recognized over a century ago: the subtle but potent use of emotional leverage, strategic vulnerability, and nuanced psychological manipulation to achieve dominance and influence. Today's dating landscape, governed by digital apps, social media, and carefully curated online personas, is a vivid illustration of Freud's concept in action. Women still exert profound influence through strategic emotional engagement, wielding intimacy as both lure and leash. Freud would likely have nodded knowingly at the modern phenomenon of hypergamy, where women's strategic mate selection is openly discussed, analyzed, and even celebrated as empowerment. To Freud, this openness is merely the conscious acknowledgement of tactics women have always employed, strategies long hidden in the subconscious and masked by romantic narratives. Modern feminism, Freud might argue, has not abolished these dynamics. It has merely made them more visible, more conscious. Women today openly articulate their desires for status, security, and power, echoing the once hidden truths Freud had painstakingly unearthed in his Viennese consulting rooms. Yet, even now, much remains hidden, cloaked by the enduring narrative of romantic love, feminine gentleness, and relational intimacy. In Freud's final analysis, the mask of love remains intact precisely because its effectiveness depends upon maintaining illusions. To openly declare love as a battleground of subtle influence risks dismantling the very structure that grants power its potency. And so the dance continues, soft, intricate, beautiful, and infinitely complex, a testament to Freud's enduring observation. Beneath every expression of affection lies an ancient, universal desire to control one's world, skillfully disguised as devotion, forever hidden in plain sight. Thus remember, we are in Deceptor. Becoming in Deceptor is the code they never wanted you to learn. A psychological war map for men, forbidden teachings fused with modern strategy for influence, dominance, and self-mastery. If you want peace, prepare for war. The Deceptor archive is the complete vault. Every lesson, every revelation, every psychological blueprint I've ever recorded, handcrafted to help you break chains, build discipline, and become undefeatable in a world built to deceive men. No ads, no algorithms, no distractions.